welcome to another TerranScapes video. I had a comment from a customer about my camera moving around too much, which I think was very justified, as the camera's small and I'm moving around a lot to try to get close-up angles, so I'm going to try with a static shot and move the pieces to the camera, so we'll see if this works a little bit better for the viewers. So what I'm covering here is a modification of some existing pieces that were requested by a customer. He wanted a stagnant river, and so what I did is I gave it a very dark tinted murky green so that it's pretty much completely opaque, and then added in some flock on the top to simulate some algae, or really I was thinking more like duckweed on the top. One of the things I found, people are often asking me for tips or tutorials, and I don't really have time to do those, but just as a quick comment, the Envirotex, which is the resin that I use for the waterway, takes quite a while to set up, and I needed to wait a little while until it became solid enough so that the flock would actually sit up above it, which actually kind of gave me a nice effect because I was adding some early and then having it sink in. I don't know if we'll be able to pick that up. Let's see. There we go. You can kind of see here, it sinks in, and then I can add some more later and have it sit up on the top. So I get a little bit of a dual effect with the darker green being under the water and then the lighter green being on top, perhaps where the leaves are a little bit drier as they sit up on top. Again, I was really thinking more like a duckweed. The color rendering in this video is a little bit off, and as you can tell, it varies quite a bit depending on what the camera is focusing on, which I'm going to have to see if I can investigate how to correct that in the future. So this is looking a little bit more blue than it actually looks in person, so you may want to go to the website at TerranScapes.com to see pictures of this if you're interested in seeing it in the color that's a little closer to what it really looks like in real life. So I did several of those pieces like that. You can see here in the Ford piece, that the rocks seem to sit, the water is darker, so the rocks really just kind of jut out of the water rather than seeing some of the subterranean rocks that are covered in the water as I normally do with the blue tinted water. And then the other request was for a modification on the walkway, the large fieldstone bridge. He really wanted a bridge that looked mossy, dirty, something that gave that effect to match the rivers. And what I did is let's see if this is going to get picked up. Boy, the color really does look awfully blue here. I'm going to pan up into the white, which seems to yellow it a bit. And that actually helps a little bit here. So you can see I've given it some washes. These are a little bit more prominent in the actual model than what you can see here in the video. But I've given it some washes to give it sort of like a greenish, stained, mossy look. And then I have hung on it some dried mosses at a few points clinging off. This is a new project of mine I really want to work on. I've got a project coming up for an upcoming tournament. If you are interested in playing at a Warhammer GT, TempleCon this year in Rhode Island is having a Warhammer GT, and I'm going to be covering two of the tables there at the event with terrain, and one of the tables is going to be a swamp terrain board, and so that's what I'm going to be working on. So this is sort of a prototype of some of the technique, and what I've done, well, it is hard to hold the piece and look through the camera at the same time. But you can see is I've draped some of this moss coming out of cracks in the fieldstone and then kind of hung it down. And I've done this using some cotton fibers and pressed it in with a little bit of glue mixed into the water that I mixed them up with, which gave them actually, let's see if I can get that into focus. Focus, there we go. Which gives it pretty nice adhesion. So these are on pretty well, which was one of my primary concerns. And the other thing I was noticing when I've used some of the other like Woodland Scenics fibers that are really sort of a plastic fiber thread, that they really have too much body and they pop out too much and they look puffy and weird, and even trying to mess in some glue into them and some paint, they didn't sit right. So this allowed me to get some pieces and really, see if I can get that in the light, there we go, really drape them off the corners and hang them off. They, again, I didn't go overly heavy on it. Oh, that shows the color of the deck a little bit better. You can see that a little bit. I didn't go overly heavy on them, partly because I told the customer I was going to add any more cost to it to do the modification, and it actually took me quite a bit longer to figure out how to do this and to stick some of these on here. But I think it was enough to give it that effect when you look at it, and again, it's going to show up just a little bit more in person, but it does sort of have this creeping vine look hanging off of it in a variety of spots, and it matches the water, the river set pretty nicely. There we go. Sorry I keep moving it out of frame. I'm going to work on that. But anyway, and I did add some of that green to the spots to just darken it and give it more of an uneven color scheme across the fieldstone. And I think overall it looks quite a bit more rustic and weathered and a bit more, I don't know, swamp-oriented than it did before. So, and actually, well, from this distance you can see some of that coloring coming up, you know, where it was painted in and added in on top of the deck. Anyway, I didn't want to go too strong on it because sometimes I think that can look garish, and so I wanted to go kind of subtle. That's usually how I tend, is to stay more subtle on the color sides as I get more familiar with them and I feel more comfortable with how they look. I gradually increase them and increase them to a point where I feel like I've reached the best point that I can. So I think I might have a little more room to go on the coloring, but I wanted to stay conservative as a early attempt on it, and I'll show you some of the ruins and bits that I'm putting together for TempleCon as time develops. The TempleCon tournament is, I believe, February 4th. You might want to check out the website. It's in Rhode Island, so if you're anywhere on the East Coast, I encourage you to come down. I'll be playing in it, and again, I'll have a couple tables set up, and I think it's going to be a good time. Anyway, thanks for taking a look at the video, and of course, if you want to see pictures of these, you can always go to the website TerranScapes.com, and there you can see close-up photos. Some of them have been, you know, I'll color correct them so that they look a little bit closer to what they look like in true life, and you can get a little bit better glimpse of it. So stay tuned for some other videos. I've got quite a few things to shoot over the next couple weeks, at least today and probably another week or so. So there'll be a lot more coming out really soon. Thanks.